folks coming in. We'll let them get set up. I'll say, just in case you guys are wondering in the media, these gifts are not for you. So as appreciative as we are of you guys. But as they get set up, I'll let you know a couple different things. We've got the PPD annual Children's Christmas Party. That is what you see. I'll have Chief come talk about that here in a second. A couple other just quick news and notes before we get to the larger items. The sanitation schedule, Christmas and New Year's, will be the same on the next 2 weeks. So the December 25th obviously is a Monday, Christmas, and then New Year's. So you'll have no change to your Thursday, Friday garbage pickup, but your Tuesday garbage will be picked up Wednesday, and your Monday garbage will be picked up Tuesday. So you'll have a day delay on both of those because of Christmas and New Year's. So same exact routine for those 2 weeks in a row. That your first pickup of the week will be a day later, and your Thursday, Friday will remain as normal. And then another reminder, Christmas tree drop-off sites. I mentioned last week, we'll have one at the Summit Boulevard recycling site behind Bill Gregory Park on 150 North W Street over there on the west edge of town, underneath the I-10 overpass at Maxwell and Haynes Street, and then at our new monitored drop-off facility on that Saturday, of course, the 30th that it's open, is 2759 North Palafox. So we imagine we might break our recycling record on a Saturday on December 30th. I have a hunch that there'll be lots of cardboard and trees that'll be coming in on that Saturday. But I want to talk about why we're here, and then I'll have Chief talk about what is around you, and really because we have a few developments in PPD to update you on, again, what you see and what we're trying to do in the community. We'll talk a little bit about locations for red light camera, get you that, and Shot Spotter went live Thursday. So a lot of great things happen at PPD, and really I would overarchingly say this is also the time of year where I'm the most appreciative of what our PPD does, because as we have friends and family start to come into town, and we start to enjoy that time, there are folks in this department, in this building, that are out keeping us safe. And it's easy to forget that on Christmas Eve, you feeling safer at home, and on Christmas morning, we have officers, men and women, that protect us every day, that are out working, and they're not with their families. And so I think it was between all of the great things that the police department's doing, all the great developments we have in public safety, also just to take a moment to appreciate all of our officers who will be out there again doing what they can to keep our city safe while we get to enjoy this special time with friends and family. So certainly want to recognize that. So we'll start with why all of these gifts are around us, and I'll have Chief come up and talk about the effort for the event at First Baptist Church. Is the PPD Annual Children's Christmas Party. It's 2 p.m. on Thursday, the 21st. But Chief, if you want to talk details.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor, and good morning, everybody. Appreciate you being here this morning. So today, welcome to PPD, and as you enter and sit in our annual Christmas Village here at Pensacola Police Department, you can see there are a lot of gifts and joy that's going to be spread this holiday season. So in honor with our annual tradition, we work with our community partners throughout the year to identify those in need, and particularly from our officers and staff who have worked with families around the community and who have had a amazing impact on the officers and the staff. And they have been nominated to be special recipients of PPD Christmas this year. Like the mayor said, it will be on December 21st, which is Thursday at 2 p.m. over at the First Baptist Church just across the street from here. The families supported by this program all were nominated, like I said, by officers and the staff throughout the year that had a great impact on the officers. So this year, I will tell you, there are 64 children here in the Pensacola area that will be impacted positively by this program. That's 64 kids, a number of different families. First time for this program, PPD has partnered with are Innisfree Hotels, a local partner, a great partner in the community, as part of their campaign for Operation Santa. They were gracious enough to partner with us and help us in wrapping of these gifts as well. Also, we have partnered with Target on Bayou Boulevard through our police foundation. We received a $1,000 grant for our Heroes and Helpers program to be able to bring all these great gifts together as well. To include our third year working with Dick's Sporting Goods at Cordova Mall, who also provided $1,000 in merchandise for this program as well. And I think that speaks truth to volume of the efforts by the police department and the community and our business community working together to bring joy and cheer in such a wonderful time of year. I think Christmas is very special to all of us, to each and every one of us, and we must remember the reason for the season as well. And through these community donations and our community engagement efforts, we want to always be able to give back to the community as much as we can. At that token, are there any questions about this particular item here? And the gifts are laid out for you to take pictures. And like I said, Thursday we'll be sharing the love with the community, those that have been selected for this program this year. All right.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay. You want to cover it?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I got that. Yeah,
Okay.
you can just stay up here
Okay.
if you want. And I believe Laura just mentioned, I think we had 18 people in here for 3 hours wrapping gifts. They did not let Chief or myself slow them down by doing any kind of wrapping. So that's how they were able to be so efficient. And again, lots of, 18 people wrapping, so many other people here at PPD and in our community to help make this happen. I'm very appreciative of that. I know Mike has got a release for you on red light camera pilot locations. So we've been mentioning to you, we've been looking at between 12 and 15 approaches, which is not intersections, that very distinct difference. If we were going to do an entire intersection, that is 4 approaches, all 4 directions. So we'll have a total of 13 approaches. We're looking at 3 to 6 months once we get the formalities, contract signed, all of that. So we're probably looking at a summer, I would say conservatively, a summer start. Of course, we will be sequencing that messaging throughout the spring as we get a better refined date. But we'd be probably looking somewhere in the late spring, early summer time frame. And the camera installation will start in the spring at the earliest. And we have the second reading of the ordinance in January that has to happen. Certainly, we're not going to sign a contract till that has taken place. But we will move as quickly as we can. Those locations, again, we'll have, I know Mike has prepared the list for you. There are 2 intersections where we're going to do all 4 approaches in the city, which is 9th and Bayou and 9th and Airport. And if you recall all of the conversation we've had for many months now with you guys, the 3 worst intersections for the last decade, year in, year out, pretty much, I believe almost always ranked 1, 2, 3 in some order, were 9th and Airport, 9th and Bayou, and Davis and Fairfield. Those were the 3 always top 3 for accidents. And so certainly we felt confident moving forward. So 9th and Bayou, 9th and Airport will be all 4 approaches. We will do the east and west approaches at 9th and Fairfield and at Davis and Fairfield. So in other words, the Fairfield direction. So not north and south on 9th, not north and south on Davis, but the Fairfield, basically going from interstate or from I-110, if you were going towards the mall, towards the airport. It's the east or away from, it would be the east and west locations. So that's 4 more approaches total. And then we're doing just the west approach at 9th and Gregory, which is ultimately the on-ramp to for leaving the 3 Mile Bridge and going to getting on the interstate. If you look at the data that I know we provided you guys a few weeks ago, that one approach was as bad as in terms of running red lights as any. As you can imagine, 3-4 lanes of high-speed traffic coming off of a bridge and going onto an interstate. Turns out people like to continue to push unlawful speed through a red light. So those are the locations, and then before I'll go through a couple other things, and then I'll have Chief come up if you guys have any technical questions. I know it came up during council meeting about the length of yellow lights, how it's going to be enforced, all that, I'll defer to Chief, and he can answer any questions that you may have. You can also, he can talk a little bit about, ShotSpotter did go live on Thursday, December 14th, and Mike and I were just talking about in the back, the first blip that we had gotten happened in the city, and we got no calls. So without ShotSpotter, we would have not even known it happened, and that's what we see a lot. Is when we start to compile this data, people might be alarmed at first where they'll say, well, man, now it seems like there's more gunshots in the city than there was before. Well, remember, we were counting on folks to call it in. Now we're not relying on that. We're going to know every time it happens. And so again, we were able to be there. I'll let Chief speak to the details, but we were there in very, very short order. And it's, again, something that we may not even have known took place without that technology. So it's a fitting first example of why it's so valuable, is that we're able to get on top of something that we would have never otherwise received a phone call on. So again, happy to have Chief answer any questions you may have. An update, we have hired our second community response specialist, she's formally started on Monday, December 11th. So, of course, we've got Tom, and then now Brittany Harris will join. That'll be the two folks. I'm sure she'll be using the rest of this year to get onboarded, and we'll be fully staffed heading into January. The latest on the PSE substation is a completion date of Thursday, February 1st. That's how it sits currently, barring any setbacks. So we think that we should be in pretty good shape there. A couple other things, again, non-PPD related. We'll distribute. We're certainly glad that we've had some conversations with the Downtown Improvement Board about parking. And at the end of the day, parking and any new policy changes, app changes, from a small business standpoint, it affects, those types of changes affect our downtown business owners, of course, because that's ultimately their parking lot, their ability to get customers in. And so we're glad to have a letter of support for parking reform in the downtown area from our downtown business owners. So, I think that they certainly, we answered their questions. We certainly wanted to make sure that they understood that some of the changes in policy also help increase inventory. And again, they've had some great feedback for us about if we were to eventually manage any private lots, given some thought to how we inspect those before we take them over, and lighting and things like that. So the downtown business owners gave us some things to chew on as well as we move forward through this. But certainly happy to have the DIB's letter of support there. Other good news for the Christmas season, while we're standing up here with all these gifts, I got a phone call 7 this morning from Secretary Gaynor at FDOT, and we have sent they have sent the U.S. Coast Guard a lighting schedule. They are still in testing, and I remind you guys that when the bridge was designed, planned, when the lighting was planned, there has been a change in procedure with the Coast Guard from when it was planned to now. So that is what's kind of caused some of this confusion about testing. Was when they started the project, there wasn't these standards in place, and then the Coast Guard put them in during this process. So it's really no one's fault. It's just the change in protocol, change in procedure for the Coast Guard that has kind of tripped some things up. That being said, we do have some good news. Starting December 21st from 6 to 10 p.m., we will have the Christmas lights on, 6 to 10 on the bridge. Now, those will run from December 21st to December 27th. And then I know we will be switching into, well, I'll get you the letter that FDOT sent to the Coast Guard. We can share with you, but I believe I'll have to look at it. 29th, 30th, 31st, I think that they'll be doing red, white, and blue. And they'll be taking the New Year's Eve lights all the way to midnight. So they have given those times to the Coast Guard while it still is in testing, and what we hope is sometime in January we'll be out of that testing phase where we aren't. This will not be a scenario where in perpetuity we would have to report this in advance to the Coast Guard. This is just kind of the mode that we're in right now. But we've gotten a lot of questions about it. You guys have asked us about it, so there is some good news. We're going to have some Christmas lights on that bridge starting Thursday. Yep, Thursday, December 21st, 6 to 10 p.m. I mentioned sanitation schedule, drop-off sites, and we collected another 1,000 pounds of clean recycling. This past Saturday, about 650 pounds of that being cardboard. And as I said, I know our team back here is bracing for a busy couple of weeks at the recycling. I would say starting December 30th and January 6th, where we imagine might be some record-breaking weekends. So we continue to push forward there. So with that, that's everything I have. Again, I've got Chief here to answer any of the PPD-related questions, and I can take anything else. So. Yeah.
On the red light cameras, so you've talked about this as a pilot program. Can you talk about exactly what you want to see out of this program? What success looks like?
Yeah. So I mean, look, that's an easy question. Number one is less crashes and less police time spent sitting at these intersections dealing with vehicle crashes. That's number one. No injuries, no fatalities. So that is our measure of success. And there's a couple misnomers, I think. One is about some kind of financial gain. If we do this correctly, there will be no financial gain. There's a potential that there would be a subsidy, which I will happily take if that means that we've lowered crashes and people aren't running the red lights. I mean, that's the number one goal here. And there's unfortunately the mechanism of which to motivate someone to not run a red light is financial, and that's just a big part of it. But as you guys know, you've seen from the language that's gone to council, less than half of the money, well less than half of the money actually ends up at the city. And the reason we're piloting it is because anytime you start something new, you're going to learn something. And I think we'll see how the equipment works. We'll make sure that there isn't some, there might be an issue that's unforeseen at a particular approach or a particular intersection. That's why I would never come out and say this is exactly where we're going to keep them for the next 5 years or 10 years. We might, but we might not. And so, one other misnomer is people have said, well, Mayor, that there are cities that have put this in, but then they've also taken them out. And that may be true, but I think one big difference and a big credit to Chief Randall and Deputy Chief Chrisman and the PPD team is we've spent a lot of time being very meticulous approach by approach. And I don't know that other cities or all other cities have done it that way. I think they've said, let's put a bunch around the city or let's do all 4 approaches at every intersection. We're looking at the biggest pain points we have. And so maybe those change over a year of time. Maybe they're not effective. And so that's why we're calling it a pilot is we could go to more, we could go to less, we could keep the same 13 and move them around. But, I think this is going to be a learning experience for us, and we're going to simply be driven by what's great is we've got 2 measures of data of how often people are running red lights, not only from this most recent time, but from a couple of years ago. So we're going to know fairly quickly. I mean, we're going to be able to get a sample size. Let's call it 6 months would be more than enough of a sample size to know if there's a positive impact. And if it's not, we'll adjust from there. And so that's how we're treating this. But at the end of the day, the metric for me is less red lights run than we used to have, less fatalities, injuries, fender benders at all of these intersections that have been giving us the most problems. Yeah.
Mayor, I guess we won't have a press conference next week.
Right.
So this will be our last chance to talk to you before the first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
When you look back on 2023 and then look forward to 2024, what do you evaluate as your mayoral high points for 2023, and what are you looking forward to 2024?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things we're excited about. I think y'all have heard me say this before. I think we've gotten a lot of irons in the fire, and that's a big testament to our staff. You can go from, we're looking at so many things, how we've overhauled procedures inside the building to Hollis T. Williams to American Magic. We're doing a lot of work on trying to improve outcomes, not only just from a salary reform, but how we treat our 800 employees inside the building. We've put a lot of time, effort, and energy into leadership development, employee engagement. There's a ton to be excited about, and I really look at year 2 as we've got those irons in the fire, and now it's time to execute on those. And half the fun is getting the grant money or getting a big project that can be transformational for the city, and the other half is seeing it through. And so I think that's what you'll see in year 2 is all of these great things that we have moving forward. that we see them, executed or close to. Airport terminal, another one. Baptist Hospital, another one. So I'm very proud of the outcomes we've had so far, and all the exciting things that we have happening in our city so far. And I think we'll be judged in 2024 about the type of progress we make on those things that we've started. So I've kind of shifted my priority in less. We don't necessarily need as many new things going on. We've got to make sure that we see these great things through. So that's what I've talked about that with our administrators, with our staff. We're really shifting into an execution mindset, of seeing all these amazing things through. Yep.
This is probably more for Chief Randall, but
Yep.
Can you give us any information on the ShotSpotter case?
Oh yes, and thank you for asking about that. So ShotSpotter has been deployed for a few days now. We started last Thursday, probably about midday. We've had a couple activations. We talked briefly about the first activation Friday night and the Saturday morning, where there was 0 calls to the police. Police responded to try to locate the location, any evidence, anything like that. The second activation we had turned out to be an actual shooting. We actually had a ShotSpotter activations unit start responding, and then we got a phone call in reference to that. Pinpointed right to the location where the victim was found, where evidence was collected, and that investigation right now is still ongoing. We got some preliminary information from the victim that was involved in that one, that there was a car involved that fled the scene. So our detectives are eagerly and aggressively following up on that, looking for any type of leads we can get in that investigation. So, and as always, we always look to our community, our great community, who is a wonderful partner, to help us with any information that they may have in reference to that investigation. They can reach out to Crime Stoppers or contact PPD as well. Any other questions in reference to ShotSpotter?
Actually, just to make sure I understood correctly, the second incident was, what was the first? The first was like a blip. You said it was a gunshot, but we don't know what it was. Or?
Yeah, it was gunshots. It came out as like 10 rounds. So when we get an activation, we can actually get an audio recording of what the gunshot sound like, and we get a map pinpoint of what a general area where the gunshot came from. So what we do is when we get that activation, we actually respond to that specific location. And also, as part of the software, we're able to have it on our phones, so we can actually pinpoint from GPS where we are, our device is in relationship to where the geolocation is for the actual area where the gunshots were detected. So you can actually see yourself like a pin on a map walking with your device to make sure you're in the right location. So yes, the first one was actually gunshots, but we got 0 phone calls in reference to those gunshots.
So 10 rounds got fired. We don't think anybody was hurt.
No,
that.
There's no indication that anybody was hurt, but we did have rounds fired, and we responded.
And then the second incident, was there someone injured?
Yes, the second incident was a shooting that happened Saturday night, shortly after 9. Where
Is that the one that happened downtown?
No, this one happened in the 1100 block of North J Street.
Okay.
Sorry, 1200 block of North J Street. Yes.
And so one victim was injured?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's being investigated?
Yes,
Do you know
ma'am.
the condition of the victim?
The victim is stable. It was an injury to the lower extremities. There was none life-threatening injury.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief. And again, I think just to reinforce the thought process that before we had this put in, we would have just never known 10 rounds have been fired in the city. And I know you guys have been working here a long time, and you think about other reporting, a shooting that took place downtown before we had this in, that you wait on a phone call for 20, 30 minutes, then the phone call says, we heard a gunshot somewhere. They don't say exactly where it was, how many rounds. So you imagine just the difference that we're now discussing, that we know exactly how many rounds, and the technology is so good that it can even start to narrow down the types of weapons that can be used, the direction that it was shot. All of those, the technological advances are really amazing, and hopefully it sends the message to folks that are wanting to make poor decisions in our community that we're going to find you. And that's why it's put in, is that we're going to find you and we're going to know about it within seconds, and we're going to have people there within seconds to be able to, again, keep our community safer and certainly deter anybody from making a stupid decision like that. So certainly excited to have that, and we're just getting that first sample size over the last 96 hours or so.
To implement the pay scale, you mentioned there's some staffing change. Did people get laid off, and how many?
No, no one's been laid off directly pertaining to the staffing change. There's been 30 vacant positions that were open that have been eliminated. That helped us fund it. And my philosophy on that is, I want to focus on the people that are here and that we expect to do good work and that they expect to be treated with respect as they should. And we'll work from the inside out. If we find ourselves in situations where we have to look at that, it doesn't mean that we may not add positions anymore or that we're having any kind of hiring freeze or anything like that. But we just identified some positions to help us get that funded. But those that decisions were made around the pay study were all vacant positions that had been open. And of course, as you can imagine, we looked at positions that had been open for a long time, ones that had been open 6 months, a year, which we had some. And what we hope is that now with new pay scales, when you have 100 plus open positions, like we have had, that they're easier to fill. And we're not having as much overtime, and we're not burning people out who work here because they're having to do a heavy lifting for vacant positions that should be their coworkers. And so those are, I think, the reverberating effects. Obviously, the primary positive effect is folks that don't make 100% AMI in the city now being able to say that they do. That's the number one goal. But the number two is what we hope is a more effective government and a more effective operation, that paying people what they deserve and them being happy to come to work every day. That helps us for accountability. That helps us for productivity. It helps us fill these positions and not have people want to leave the city and be burned out because they can't get coworkers. And so I think all of those are positive impacts for us. And so that was the decisions about 30 positions. And that's across enterprises as well, Rick. That's not just general fund positions. That's Pensacola Energy, Airport. It includes citywide on that 30. Yeah.
Mayor, real quick, how are we doing at Bruce Beach? Have you got an update recently?
Well, my update generally is I drive by there every morning from my house to City Hall, but I was looking at it this morning, actually. I think progress is on schedule as far, and understand that, when I took this job, the plan was to go ahead and try to get it done, to just roll right into phase 2. So as you see when you drive by, phase 1 is complete. It looks great. But the goal is to just get it all knocked out, at the same time. We have toyed with the idea. We have not committed to this yet. If we could get a Portland loo, if we can get a public restroom into phase 1 somehow without disrupting phase 2, I've asked David and staff to kind of look into that, work with Biggs Construction to see if that's a possibility. We're not counting our chickens on that, or we're not committing to that. But if there was a way to get a bathroom facility in there, could we open a few months early, maybe, for spring or something like that, and maybe not wait till the fall? Certainly something I'd entertain, because it is ready to go. But at the end of the day, we've got a primary issue, safety, and certainly we don't want to open a phase 1, without a restroom facility and some things like that. That we're, trying to learn lessons from park openings past, that we want to make sure we've got restroom facilities for a $8 million investment of our city. So again, no promises on that yet, but that is something that we're looking into. If we could get a bathroom in there, that we may actually slide up an opening date for phase 1 and go ahead and get it open to the public. But more to come on that.
So you just brought up Portland loos. That reminded me. Hey, what is the status of bringing those?
Yeah, we're still that is still our intent. As with everything in cost estimation these days, they've gone from what we thought might be a little less than 100,000 to, by the time they're Florida wind rated, little different rules here than in Oregon. By the time we get now, we're north of 150,000 each. Now we're still going to move ahead with that, but certainly, that gave us some pause. We kind of tried to value engineer those when the price was even higher than that. So our intent right now is still to move ahead with one in the MLK Plaza, Pilot Fox Market area. I've had a conversation with the University of West Florida with Dr. Saunders. I know we're in conversations with the Historic Trust about putting one in Museum Plaza, actually as a shared partnership, because that would give us some value at Plaza Ferdinand as well as give UWF some value at Museum Plaza to have a set bathroom facility back there. Looking at one at the skate park, one at Bruce Beach, and I believe Veterans Memorial Park, that still remains to be seen because of the funding that we had gotten for VMP. We might actually end up putting the restroom in the structure that we're already going to be funding. So that remains to be seen. But our intent is to order 5, and I know that those would be the first 4 locations for sure. And of course, we've got ample opportunity for a 5th location. And the great thing about them is they're modular. So if we could put 2 at one location, and if we decided in 2 years to move it at a relatively minimal cost, we would be able to do so. So yes, we still are moving forward with that. I can get you today so a better, clearer picture of timeline. I'll have to confirm, but yes, still full steam ahead with that.
Mayor, staying with the bathroom idea here.
Yep.
We've had a couple of calls about the Veterans Memorial Park bathroom, the one that's been funded.
Uh-huh.
As you like to say, the capital's been stacked, and I think they're ready to go. And the question revolves around who owns that bathroom and what will be the rules of engagement. I mean, people are hearing that it'll only be open on special occasions at the Veterans Park. Has all that been sorted out? Do we know anything more?
It hasn't, but understand that's money. The $750,000 was money that was given to the city of Pensacola. So from an ownership standpoint, clearly that's going to be an asset of the cities. But the spirit of that, the request of that, the reason it will exist is for certainly for veterans to come visit the park. Of course, VMP does a great job maintaining that and makes that really an asset for us in the city. So, of course, we're going to work with ultimately who has already been our operator. From they take care of the monuments. They have their own obligations, while we have some other maintenance obligations. So, we're actually refreshing that agreement as we're having conversations about Chappie James. We're trying to get some consistency about when we have city-owned property that also has amenities on it that an outside group wants. How do we best marry the maintenance requirements, obligations of each? And so we're actually kind of streamlining both of those so they look similar. But hours of operation, all that is too early at this point. I mean, I have not been proposed anything, in terms of hours, but there's a difference between, will it be a city facility? Yes, it will be a city facility. The spirit of why it's there is because of the proven credible operator that is already there that will want to have events and things like that. So like all of these things, and you guys know me, we look at these leases closely. We look at these agreements closely to make sure they're fair for the taxpayer and also that they do good work and certainly want to reward all of the great things that happen there at Veterans Memorial Park. So, and the board that again they've walked the walk. They've maintained these places. They do a good job of activating that space and helping honor our veterans. And so we'll come to some amicable conclusion. But any idea that we've already decided that or what hours it'll be open or what that has not certainly gotten to my desk at this point. So I couldn't say that for sure. But I'm sure we'll work through something with them.
At the city council meeting last week, at the end, you brought up the price of the Malcolm Young gym.
Yeah.
What's your current thinking on that as far as going forward that assessment?
Yeah. Well, look, personally, I feel pretty confident in the. We paid $30,000 for as you've seen, the limited structural assessment for Malcolm Young and also for Cobb Center. You've heard me mention Cobb Center is not as far gone as Malcolm Young is, but it's on the same path. And it's the same wood beams built around the same time. And that's an active facility right now that is open to the public. So certainly that gives us some concern too in terms of maintenance. So we feel confident with the conversation that we had with the folks that went and looked at it. And as you can imagine, my goal is to be as fiscally responsible as possible. Why we would ever want to get rid of a facility that still had value in it, of course we wouldn't. My concern is we think that the full assessment will be right around $100,000 somewhere, give or take. We're going to get a price from those folks. Of course, I've been given the authority to do so, to go ahead and execute that from CRA. But I plan to bring this back to CRA because I want to have another conversation and make sure that we're all on the same page. Not only is it $100,000, we've been notified that and we're getting a cost estimate for this as well, that it would be an additional $100,000, give or take, to just get the building structurally secure enough for the inspection to take place. So we're talking about so we had a demo price of about $49,000. We're already at $200,000 to even just assess what we've already seen. You remember from the CRA meeting, there was somebody had emailed us and said this could be done for $193,000. Well, we know that isn't true because it's going to cost $200,000 for us to even make an assessment on the building. So even that scenario has just doubled in price, even if that was true. We looked further into that assessment. It assumes that there's a lot of assumptions in that. It assumes that you would be able to, whether it be epoxy, I'm not a structural engineer, I don't want to attempt to describe it accurately, but it makes a lot of assumptions that those beams aren't too far gone. Some of those beams, if they are, and if you go out there right now, you can see through them. There's literally a hole in the wood you can see all the way through. Those would not be able to be fixed by that mechanism that was proposed in the email, what was mentioned at CRA. That would be steel, which now you're talking about exponentially higher cost. My opinion is that it is not cost feasible to bring the building up to being structurally sound, plus bringing it up to ADA compliance. I believe an HVAC unit is out that we've confirmed. The wood is buckling on the floor. So, as I said in the CRA meeting, we can't just look at can we get the beams to hold the roof up. We've got to look at, if we're bringing this back to the public good, what's the full price tag? That's what we're talking about here. And the chances, in my opinion, and I'm not a structural engineer, but in my opinion, from what we have heard from experts, is we are not going to be anywhere in the stratosphere of the cost of the land, this building not being completely totaled. How much money we would have to spend versus the value of the building and the property itself. And then that lends the entire question that even, let's say the price comes in and the CRA board wants to entertain doing that renovation, then we've got to have a conversation about what's more important in our community, a 62-year-old basketball gym or housing for people who can't afford it. And so you could make a case that we could get to the end of this with some kind of price tag, and even if we disagree, we have to have a discussion about priority as well. So my intent right now is to bring that back in January, because I honestly don't feel good just signing, even if I've already been given authorization to do so. I think it's worth another conversation with the CRA board to say we're about to spend north of $200,000 to find out something we may already know. And just here, and again, at the end of the day, it's the checks and balances of government. That's certainly, if that's something they want to make double sure of, that this is a good deal for, and they think this is a good deal for us, certainly I'll respect that. But I do not want to just go off with the guidance to just go do it without, I think it's financially prudent for me to bring this back to CRA and really make sure that they're okay with it. Because I would say personally, if it was only my decision on that, I don't think it's financially feasible to spend north of $200,000 to figure out something that I think we already know.
Are the bids to demolish the building, are those already expired, or when do they expire?
They're not, but by the time this process would play out, they would be. Are they 90 days or 30?
State statute allows 90 days.
So 90 days. So, and then that's another part of this is if we do delay, I believe that if we proceed with the 200,000 solution, and again, that's an estimate. We don't know the exact number. If we proceed with that, we're looking at 5 to 6 months of delay. And again, if we talk about housing versus a gym, my argument is, well, that's 6 more months without housing. We could have at least 14 affordable units, maybe more, maybe up to 25 or 30. So for workforce housing. So, that's why I wouldn't necessarily support that. But again, I want to hear out the CRA board and see where their head is on it, and I want to make sure they have an understanding of the type of assessment costs we're looking at here. And I feel like they should have that information.
So is it possible if the CRA board does decide to change back to the original course of demolishing the building, is it possible to still award those bids in January? Or?
I guess, I would imagine so. If the 90-day, I'd have to look at exactly the 90 days. It'd be tight. But I would imagine, if we were given that direction within 90 days, we would be able to do that. And I'll reiterate what I said during the CRA meeting is there's no scenario of which the city, I'm breaking us from the habit of taking an entire building that could cost multi-millions of dollars and giving it to for only one user for 20 years. That's what we had before, and it didn't really make a lot of sense. So if we're wrong and it's way cheaper than we think to do all those things I just listed for the building, and we think that that's a good idea, the CRA does, my intent at that point would be to try to find the funding and make it and put it in the public good, and Benny Washington's group or anybody can come to us like a normal public facility and say, hey, we'd like to be able to use some gym time, but it's not going to work the inverse way, which is how it was written before, which is, hey, the city can use it if you come ask us permission. I'm not as interested in that. I would say if we're going to go through all of this, then this needs to be a public facility that has public access, and we can have discussions about regular use with organizations who do good in our community. But the other thing that could happen here that needs to be paid attention to is Cobb Center. That's the other conversation is if we have $100,000 to us, let's say we had $100,000 to assess a building, would it be more prudent for us to look at Malcolm Young or at Cobb Center right now? I mean, Cobb Center's active. It's got basketball leagues in it. It's got and so if we only could do one, and I'm not saying that that's the case, but if we could only do one, would it be more logical for us to look at the empty building that is not safe for humans to go in, or would we do the one that's activated? So we've already had the conversation that if we do go that direction, if the CRA still wants to move forward with the full assessment, we will probably propose in January that we do assessments on both Cobb and Malcolm Young, because we already have to find, David and I have talked about this, there's only a handful of experts that even know how to assess these old beams, that they're not just, everyone in the community doesn't know how to do that. So they would actually have to bring some experts in. So if they're going to do that, it would make a lot of logical sense for us to have them also look at a very similar gym that is being used right now. So you can see there's a lot of different things between the priority of housing, between other centers that are already open and in use that could be going down the road of disrepair. There's a lot of other things to consider, and that's why I'd like to have another conversation now that we have more information. I'd like to have another conversation with them before we make a decision.
Mayor, on workforce housing, the CRA is executing an infill housing project, as they've described, over on West Blunt Street at the Baptist campus. The CRA meeting to the West Side Board several weeks ago, the staff talked about soliciting developer input based upon prototypical drawings, townhomes type stuff. Is this part of the Baptist redevelopment, or is this strictly an infill project of the city?
Yeah, my understanding, remember, there were a couple infill projects as I took over that Mayor Robinson had started to move forward. 2300 West Jackson, I believe, was one that was a single house that was going to be on a lottery-based system. I've kind of slowed the priority on that because I felt like for the amount of time and effort that these single lot, single houses were going to take, that they were, multiple years, that if we were going to spend that amount of bandwidth and time from staff, from everybody else, why not try to do it at scale? Malcolm Young being a perfect example. It wouldn't be 14 times the bandwidth for us to get 14 houses in that project versus trying to take them on one at a time. So I'm in support of any type of infill, any workforce housing, affordable type infill, but we've got to be smart about our resources too and not try to take them on one at a time. When I was at Mayor's Institute for City Design, one concept that's being used with some cities is actually doing scattered site proposals, where you would take, I'm making a number up, if we had 15 infill lots that we wanted as a city that we owned, that we wanted to have built, that you would actually bid out all 15, and that it would be scattered sites. So one developer, one affordable housing developer would come in, and they would bid on all of those to put housing at all of them, just, again, from the economy of scale, that they would be able to come in and start knocking them out. They'd have deadlines of which to do so. So we haven't gone down that road yet. I just mean that's how, philosophically, I'm trying to, this is a scale problem we have, and one house at a time ain't going to do it. So, I'm looking for opportunities to scale. So, the Baptist part, no, that's completely unrelated. And I believe that was just even more of a philosophical discussion, not that something necessarily tangible was happening, is my understanding. But it was brought up during CRI Westside just as a potential opportunity. But that's where we sit right now. And but no significant movement on the single house kind of projects, but from before. All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.